Chapter 3. Clauses. Examine the groups of colored words in the following sentences. She has a ring of gold. She has a ring which is made of gold. We recognize the first group of words as a phrase. The second group of words contains a subject which and a predicate is made of gold. Such a group of words which forms part of a sentence and contains a subject and a predicate is called a clause. Kinds of clauses. Adverb clauses. Look at the group of words in italics in the following sentences. He returned home at sunset. Returned when? He returned home when the sun set. Returned when? It is evident that both the groups of words in italics in sentences 1 and 2 do the work of an adverb as they modify the verb returned, showing when the action was performed. We at once recognize the first group of words at sunset as an adverb phrase. Is the second group of words when the sun set also adverb phrase?
No, it is not a phrase, for unlike a phrase, it has a subject, sun, and a predicate, set, of its own and forms part of a sentence.
Such a group of words that forms part of a sentence and has a subject and a predicate of its own is called a clause. Since the clause when the sun set does the work of an adverb qualifying the verb returned, it is called an adverb clause. An adverb clause is a group of words which contains a subject and a predicate of its own and does the work of an adverb. Examine the following sentences. The lost wristwatch was found in the tourist's resting place. The lost wristwatch was found where the tourist used to rest. In both these sentences, the groups of words in color do the work of an adverb. The group of words in sentence 1 is a phrase, while group of words in sentence 2 is a clause, because it has a subject, the tourist, and a predicate, used to rest, of its own. It can be noticed that the adverb phrase is equivalent to the adverb clause, and can therefore be replaced by it. Kinds of adverbs, clauses. Adverb clause. There are different types of adverb clauses. Adverb clause of time.
We use the words like when, as, whenever, before, after, and since to introduce adverb clauses of time.
He reached the theater after the movie had started. Adverb clause of place. We use the words like where and wherever to introduce adverb clauses of place. The ship sank where the waters were deep. Adverb clause of reason.
We use the words like because, since, as, and that to introduce adverb clauses of reason. Since there is no more work, you can go home.
Adverb clause of comparison.
We use the words like than and as to introduce adverb clause of comparison.
You must work harder than I do. Adverb clause of purpose. We use the words like, so that, in order that, and less to introduce adverb clauses of purpose.
We eat so that we may live.
We must work together in order that an agreement can be reached on this issue. He gripped his father's arm, lest he be trampled by the mob. Adjective clauses. Look at the group of words in italics in the following sentences. The chair with a broken leg is hers. The chair which has a broken leg is hers. The first group of words with a broken leg describes the chair, that is, it qualifies the noun chair and does the work of an adjective. It is what we call an adjective phrase.
We eat so that we may live. The second group of words, which has a broken leg, also describes the chair, and so does the work of an adjective. But because it contains a subject and a predicate of its own, it is called an adjective clause.
An adjective clause is a group of words which contains a subject and a predicate of its own and does the work of an adjective. Examine the following sentences. I met a man with grey hair. I met a man whose hair was grey. The group of birds with grey hair qualifies the noun man. The group of birds whose hair was grey also qualifies the noun man. Hence, both these groups of birds do the work of an adjective. But the groups of birds with grey hair is a phrase, while the group of birds whose hair was grey is a clause. Adjective phrase with grey hair is equivalent to the adjective clause, whose hair was grey, and can therefore be replaced by it. Noun clauses. Examine the groups of words in italics in the following sentences. They expect to get prizes. Expect what? They expect that they will get prizes. Expect what?
The first group of words, to get prizes, does not contain a subject and a predicate of its own. It is therefore a phrase and is an object of the verb expect and hence does the work of a noun. It is therefore a noun phrase.
The second group of words, that they will get prizes, contains a subject and a predicate of its own. It is therefore a clause. This clause is the object of the verb expect, and so does the work of a noun. We therefore call it a noun clause. Now examine the sentence.
That you should say this is very strange.
Here the clause that you should say this is the subject of the verb is. It therefore does the work of a noun and is what we call a noun clause. A noun clause is a group of words which contains a subject and a predicate of its own and does the work of a noun. Examine the following sentences and notice the work done by the clause in each. I knew where I could meet them. I went to the place where I could meet them. I went where I could meet them.
In sentence 1, the clause does the work of a noun and is the object of the verb knew.
In sentence 2, the clause does the work of an adjective and qualifies the noun place. In sentence 3, the clause does the work of an adverb and modifies the verb went. Hence it is clear that the same clause may be a noun clause in one sentence, an adjective clause in another sentence, and an adverb clause in yet another sentence.